Welcome back, friends, to another episode of the Rigor Mortis podcast. Jason, how you doing, man?
I am hungover and hot as hell.
Yes, our studio is hot. We don't have air conditioning in here, so bear with us. We're going to crank the energy up. We got the Powerades going for the electrolytes, but I think we're going to sweat it out by the end of this one.
To sauna.
Yes. So what brings us back to record on another warm day?
Today we're going to do the story of the Delphi Murders.
Yes, this is a very hot topic.
Very sad topic.
Yes. This is one that I've had a lot of interest in almost since the beginning.
Yeah, I think we've both been following it pretty regularly.
Yeah, and I'm ready for this one to be solved.
Yeah, it's been going on for about 2.5 years, but they just recently released some new information.
It seems like every few months there's something new coming of this. So take us away, man.
So this is about the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German in Delphi, Indiana.
Right, and now this area is what I picture to be small town USA kind of place.
Right. Not the big city.
Kind of like this, our town here,
right.
Where everybody kind of knows everybody, and at least by face.
And probably considered a relatively safe place.
I would imagine. I mean, I'd still assume it to still be. This is just one of those unusual, tragic events. But this story begins on Monday, February 13th of 2017.
Right.
At around 1 p.m., a family member drops off the two girls at a trail near the Monon High Bridge. Now, I believe I'm saying that correct.
All right, and I think this is like an abandoned railroad bridge over like a creek.
Yeah, it seemed like a heavily forested area, had a twisty, if you look at the overhead map, kind of a twisty, turny, snake-like creek.
Right.
And an old, out-of-commission train track running through it.
Right, and where we live, we have trains that come through, and it's not uncommon at all to use them as, trails or hiking or just, there's people that walk along the tracks regularly, and we actually have the park where the Balloon Festival is here. That's an old railroad that they turned into a walking path.
As you dig deeper into the story, you can almost picture the exact location, even though you've never been there, just because we've all been to places that have looked like this.
Right, and what's interesting about this is, like you said, it takes place on Monday. This would be a normal school day, but I guess from what I read in Indiana, they have built-in snow days, where if there's a snow day earlier in the year, then they will have school on this day. But if there's no snow days, then this ends up being like a teacher's workshop day.
So this is a good day for the kids. And I guess this particular day was unusually warm for Indiana in February.
That's right.
So these two girls getting outside probably to enjoy some of the nice weather.
Right, and this, they got dropped off around 1 p.m. I believe they were told that somebody would be there around like 4 or 5 to pick them up.
Yeah, and they had cell phones. At least one of them did.
Right.
And this was a walk that they normally had done. Now, around 5:30 p.m., the girls failed to show up at the predetermined location to be picked up by a family member. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this was one of their fathers to pick them up.
I believe so. And it was completely out of character. I mean, they're very responsible girls who, if your dad told you to be there at 5:30, they'd probably be there at 5:20.
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. And when they don't show up at 5:30, the family reports them missing immediately.
You're right. And law enforcement takes this serious pretty quickly, which, a lot of the cases that we've heard and whatnot, usually a missing person case kind of gets off to a slow start, but not in this case.
In fact, this is a case that I find that law enforcement seemed like they handled it and still do very well.
Right, because they were reported missing at 5:30, and Monday night, a large search effort got underway involving volunteers, multiple law enforcement agencies, and just people throughout the town that are really trying to help find these girls.
Now, they actually search on until darkness, and at that point, the search is called off.
Right.
Now, at 12 a.m., I'm assuming this would be
midnight,
that same time period, Carroll County Sheriff Toby Leyenby says in a news release that there's no reason to suspect foul play at this point. He doesn't believe that the girls are in any kind of immediate danger. Now, I wonder why they would release that.
Well, they said that their biggest concern is exposure to the elements, which mid-February, it was a nice day, but it's probably not going to stay that way. You don't want to have two teenage or preteens out in the wilderness all night long in those conditions.
Right, so at this point they're not suspecting anything.
They think maybe one of them might have fallen and got hurt, and the other one didn't want to leave her side, or maybe they got lost and hopefully they can find her in the morning.
It almost sounds like to me that's the thing, is that they're thinking they're going to find them okay very soon.
Right.
Very soon. But then the following day, Tuesday, February 14th of 2017 comes.
And yeah, at that time the search resumes in the morning with more volunteers and police officers. They also bring in K9 units and dive teams as well.
So this creek must be pretty deep.
I would imagine, yeah.
I would imagine, yeah. By noon, searchers find 2 bodies about a half-mile away from the bridge.
Right. And this obviously, Libby and Abigail.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Right.
And at 2 p.m. during a news conference, authorities announced that they have discovered the bodies, but give no indication of their identities.
Right. So unless there's 2 other, people missing that, just happen to be found in the area these 2 girls went missing, put 2 and 2 together.
But also at this time, this is when they first released that foul play is suspected in connection with the case.
Right. And I don't know what they had for evidence at that time. Actually, about this case, as we go into it, you'll notice that the police do a good job at keeping tabs on the evidence and not releasing too much info.
I think, what do they call it, keeping it close to the vest?
I guess so, yeah.
At 4 p.m., Delphi Community School Superintendent Greg Brills released a statement saying that the bodies found in the afternoon were those of the 2 missing Delphi Community Middle School students.
Right.
Despite no confirmation from the police at this point.
Like we said, put 2 and 2 together, but it's very sad that, this is how they found the girls.
Yeah. Now, Brills says grief counselors will be made available to students and staff. Brills later says school security will be stepped up as they don't really know what's gone on.
Right, and they cancel all the future, activities for the remainder of the week, like all the sporting events and things like that, maybe school plays.
All handled well by the superintendent.
I think this whole case has been handled well, honestly.
Yes.
So around 7 o'clock that night, they end up having a candlelight vigil for the girls at the United Methodist Church.
Must have been a very sad event, for sure.
And shocking to this whole community.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Terrible. Wednesday, February 15th of 2017.
So 2 days after the event started.
At 8 a.m., autopsies are conducted in Terre Haute on the bodies discovered during Tuesday's search. Local authorities convene a meeting after the autopsies are complete.
Right, probably to hash out the evidence and decide what they're going to release to the press.
Of course. Everything's been well planned out.
Absolutely.
And well thought out by the authorities.
Right. So at 10 o'clock that morning, Sergeant Kim Riley of Indiana State Police provides an update on the investigation.
Basically, right now, we're waiting on the autopsy report so we can verify the identity of the 2 victims that we found out in the field yesterday, out in the woods yesterday. Right now, we're following up on hundreds and hundreds of leads that have come in. There is nobody of interest at this point in time that we can say. And until we get the autopsy report and the positive identification done of the 2 victims, no names will be released at this time. That's basically all I've got at this point in time.
And you know what? This, like we said, this is a small community. People know who these girls are.
Right. And the sergeant also, tells parents at this time, keep your kids close to your vest, keep an eye on them. They believe that somebody in the community did this and may still be here lurking.
Scary.
It's very scary.
Scary, People in this town must have been going about their day, their business, looking at each other, conducting with people and wondering, am I talking to the killer?
Right.
Is the killer in here right now?
Right.
So I'd imagine everything must have been on high alert in this community. But I believe that the authorities did a very good job at keeping things as calm and organized as they possibly could.
Right.
At 3 p.m., Indiana State Police and the Carroll County Sheriff's Department hold a news conference confirming that the bodies found Tuesday are those of Liberty and Abigail.
Right, so just telling everybody what they already knew, unfortunately.
Yes.
And they also say at this point that the case is being investigated as a double homicide. And they do not believe anybody else in the community is in immediate danger.
So an opportunistic type thing.
It kind of sounds
like is what they're thinking. 7 p.m., Indiana State Police release a photo of a man reportedly walking on the trail around the time of the girl's disappearance. Police say that they want to talk to the individual, but stopped short of calling him a suspect.
All right, so somebody must have seen this guy in the area?
Very smart play. Well, they have a photo of the individual. That's something to keep in. That's very interesting.
Interesting.
You know, so if you're listening to the story as it unfolds, you would almost be asking yourself, where the hell does this photo come from?
Right.
Right? So there's little bits coming out.
And this is moving quickly. I mean, this is 2 days after the disappearance, and they're already releasing a photo of the individual.
Yeah, very cool, very interesting.
Right. So the next day at 6 p.m., please set up a tip line for anyone with information in the case to call. And they actually say they've had upwards of 250 tips so far. So this is actually still an active tip line. They're still getting tips to this day. And if you have anything you'd like to share, the number is 844-459-5786. They vet every tip that comes in.
If you know something, help the authorities put this animal away. At 6:45 p.m., funeral arrangements are unfortunately set for the 14-year-old Liberty German.
Right. And this is very sad. I mean, unfortunately, these girls, they've already had their autopsies and whatnot, and now the family has to deal with laying them to rest, while also, continuing to follow the case.
Right. Unreal. I couldn't imagine.
Me either. We both have children, and this is just the worst nightmare.
Horrible. And now at 7:45 p.m., Indiana State Police serve a search warrant in connection with the case at a home in Delphi, but no arrests are made. So this is just to search the premises, I'm assuming.
Right, and I think that from what I had read, this is this man owns the property the girls were found on, but it's not. It's a very large, farm type of property, and I think they were found, on the edge of his property, off of the trail.
Yeah, from what I understand, and this is an older man, but he's in great shape, and he was able to take police wherever they needed to go, and he was willing to help them and assist them in any way possible.
Right.
So, but it's just unfortunate that this had caused some issues for him as well.
Right. He had an alibi that he was at the dump.
Yeah, and I believe he was on a suspended license.
Right. So his alibi actually got him in trouble. He ended up going to jail, which is super unfortunate. You should almost be offered, immunity to speak in a case like that, because he could have just been quiet.
Right. I agree with you on that, too. They could have maybe cut the guy some slack. I think you got 2 years for that.
Yeah.
That's it's unfortunate. Now, on Saturday, February 18th, 2017, at 4 p.m., a public visitation for the girls is held at Delphi Community High School.
Right, and there's quite a turnout for this. People coming to show their respects to the family, and just let them know they're in their thoughts.
Yeah, no, this was a huge thing in this community. The following day, February 19th, 2017, at 12:30 p.m., Indiana State Police say the man photographed walking along the trail at the time of the girl's disappearance is the suspect in this death.
Right, so they go from, we just want to talk, what do you know, what have you seen, to admitting this guy's a suspect.
Can we talk a little bit about that picture?
Sure.
Okay, so it's kind of grainy, the image. To me, they say that he's wearing, and we'll put it on our social media and all that, this picture. But they say he's wearing a hat, and they kind of have him wearing...
He's a big, bulky guy, but it's very hard to see the picture.
It looks like he could have a lot of clothes on. Maybe he's not a very big guy, but he's overdressed for a warm day.
Right, it looks like he's wearing I don't even know what those hats are called, a hat that a cab person would wear or something like that.
Where I come from, they call that a chapeau.
A chapeau, okay.
It looks like a chapeau to me.
All right.
But it's hard to tell what color hair he has, hard to really make out his facial features. But based off of the image, he does look like maybe a middle-aged guy.
Right, absolutely. And what's interesting about this is, where did they get the picture from?
Where did they get the picture from? We're going to touch on that a little bit later. But that is a very interesting question.
Monday, February 20th, 2017, police say they're conducting a statewide manhunt for the man seen in the photo, and they tell the Indiana community to provide information via the hotline that we discussed before.
Carroll County Prosecutor Robert Ives cautions Delphi residents not to harass, bother, or accuse anyone.
Right, so I think that what happened was when they issued that search warrant, of course the community got word of that and started harassing the members of that home.
Did that happen?
I believe so.
Yeah, and you know what, nobody is...
That's pretty
is
common.
guilty.
I mean, just because a search warrant is issued at your residence doesn't necessarily make you guilty. But unfortunately, in a case like this, the first person they look at, everybody's going to want to jump down his throat.
You got a good point, because when you're known in a small community and word spreads real quick, things can get real dangerous. And this guy has been cooperative, and he's done nothing to really look guilty to anybody.
But you understand exactly why the police did the search warrant, because it was his property.
Yes.
Crossed it off the list, and he was, like you said, he was very cooperative. Just wanted to, check his name off the list.
Now, on Tuesday, February 21st of 2017, an official says that the teen's deaths could lead to security changes along this trail area. The changes could include additional security cameras.
Right, and this is so sad. I mean, we come from a very naturey area, and when we were kids, we used to play in the woods with no worries in the world. And now there almost has to be cameras everywhere because of the amount of crime and negative things that can happen.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I was thinking as before we started recording, how weird it would be to go to some of the trails that I frequent here and seeing like cameras attached to trees and stuff. So it is an unfortunate thing that we live in a world where even our recreation in our own communities needs to be monitored
right.
At all times.
Right. So the next day, February 22nd of 2017, at 10 a.m., investigators hold a news conference, and they update the status of the investigation at this time.
Yeah, this was kind of a time for them to release a little bit more information and kind of reveal a couple more cards. At this point, they release a little section of audio that they were also able to obtain.
Right, and they got this from Liberty German's cell phone.
And this is where you could assume the picture comes from.
Right, I guess there was a recorded video of the man that was walking on the bridge, so they probably just took a still shot of that.
They must have, yeah.
For the picture, but she actually, nobody knows why she took this video, but she obviously saw something in this man that she felt the need to record.
She felt the need to record it, so you almost wonder if there was some kind of communication prior to this between them.
Right, and take a listen to this audio and that was released, and see if you can figure out what they're saying.
Yeah.
Downhill.
Well, to me, Jason, that sounds like, down the hill.
I agree, that's what I got too. Down the hill, downhill, down the hill. And it's obviously a looped audio clip.
Yeah, and it sounds kind of grainy. I don't know if that means anything. I don't know if maybe the phone could have been in her pocket at the time, and that might have taken from the audio quality.
That's possible. I mean, maybe she felt threatened and opened a recording and put it in her pocket just to record what may be happening. But also, this may have been like a kind of a cheap phone. I mean, I don't get the impression that this was like an iPhone or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
the video quality looks like, she has a smartphone, but it may be, like a $40 smartphone or something.
Oh man, my oldest has a track phone. It's just so that I can communicate with him.
Right.
If I'm gonna drop him off to go do something like these girls are gonna do.
I do know this was probably a smartphone because she was actually on Snapchat, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, but you can get a smartphone these days for $25, $30,
right.
$40. Not very expensive.
Right.
So yeah, I'm guessing probably the same. Probably an inexpensive smartphone.
Right.
And that also could play into why some of the quality isn't so good as well.
But very heads up by her to make this recording to begin with.
Oh yeah, very smart, very smart. When the authorities released this information, they also announced that there's going to be a $41,000 reward for any information leading to an arrest of the murder of these children.
Right. So this is pretty standard for a community to raise a reward to try to entice somebody to say something.
Of course. Now, on Thursday, February 23rd, at 12:45 p.m., Indiana State Police say they've received 3,900 tips in this case.
So this is 10 days after the disappearance, and they've already had 4,000 tips.
Yeah, and a third of them come after the release of the audio recording.
Right, so maybe somebody recognized his voice?
That could be, but a lot of times, unfortunately, Jason, when you put a reward on things, people will... Because, 3,900 tips. Unfortunately, you do get a lot of bogus phone calls.
Right.
People trying to get, pluck at straws, try to get something from things.
Right. And then U.S. Representative Todd Rokita actually donated $9,000 as well to up the amount to $50,000.
Yeah. Way to go, Todd. That's a good move, too. I kind of like that.
Yeah, and the Indiana State Police later that day around 4 p.m., they announced that the FBI is taking over for tips in the case.
Wow.
So
Why is the FBI involved?
I would assume maybe because the murder of children, or maybe a capital case.
That could be. Because it does take a lot to get the FBI involved.
It does.
Unfortunately, a lot of the cases that we've researched, local municipalities ask the FBI to get involved, and they can't for whatever reason. So
Right.
it's kind of it's great that they're able to assist in this one. Now, Monday, February 27th, police say they've received close to 10,000 tips in this case at this time. Okay, and the reward surges to nearly $100,000.
Right. A lot of these tips coming in to the FBI line. Nothing concrete at this time.
I don't think so. I don't think they had much on that.
This was less than 2 weeks after the disappearance, and they've already had 10,000 tips, though.
It's hard to say, but I almost feel like the information that they have is probably 100% from the crime scene.
Right. And on Tuesday, February 28th, despite rumors, the Indiana State Police say they haven't made any arrests in connection with the deaths of Liberty German and Abigail Williams. So they asked the public not to jump to conclusions or spread rumors on social media. I'm assuming this maybe has something to do with the guy's property it was.
Yeah, that, and when, like we've had here in our community, a recent murder, people take to social media.
Oh, absolutely.
And a lot of things that are not facts are put on Facebook and other social media platforms. And this kind of stuff can convolute the actual case and take from the actual goal.
Right, and I think also, like we had mentioned before, how the guy went to jail because he was driving with a suspended license to the dump. That was his alibi. So if I had to take a guess, I'd say that when police arrested him for that, people probably saw that and assumed that it had something to do with this case.
Oh, small town America. People are watching this happen live outside of this guy's driveway.
Right. And on Wednesday, March 1st, Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay and the former punter of the Colts, Pat McAfee, they announced they were donating $97,000, which brought the reward at that time to $200,000.
Awesome. Way to go, guys. Now at 6 p.m., grandparents of Abby Williams leave emotional notes at police headquarters that express their gratitude for those investigating the case.
So I think they're, kind of thinking the same way we are, where it seems like the police have done a pretty good job on this.
Yeah, and the family is appreciative of it too, which a lot of times you don't see that to be the case either.
Right, and a lot of cases you could easily poke holes in the way the police handled the case, but they seem to be, in this case, right off the bat, they were involved, and they weren't afraid to bring in the FBI to further the case. They're vetting all these tips and, reward and everything they're doing to try to get this case solved.
An example of, I guess you could say, fine police work up to this point so far.
I would say so, yeah.
Now on Thursday of March 1st, Lowe's donates 1,000 orange light bulbs to residents so they can light up Delphi. And this was their quote. Light up Delphi, and install the orange light bulbs on their porch lamps as tribute to Abby and Libby.
So that's pretty good. A large national company donating to a community. I mean, that doesn't happen too often.
No, I think that's great. Also in that same week, the Papa John's franchise holds a pizza fundraiser at the Delphi Community Middle School to raise money for the reward fund. So, way to go, Papa.
The community is really banding together for these girls.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And on Wednesday, March 8th, officials announced formation of a task force which is going to explore safety options along the walking trails. And they also announced that they're working with the FBI to build a profile of the suspect.
Very good. So things are starting to move along here.
Right.
I guess kind of quickly in a way.
Right. And what do they normally do for a profile?
Well, I think, and I'm no expert, but I think that they would probably take that picture, they would take the audio, and somehow they have these FBI specialists that are able to put together...
This guy's likely between 25 and 40. He probably works overnight shift. And
deep things like, he's got issues with this, he's got issues with that, he's,
trying to give the public something like, hey, I might know somebody who fits 5 of these criteria or something.
I really don't know how they do it, but it's a lot of times...
They're pretty accurate with it.
Very accurate.
It's mind-blowing.
So it's pretty cool. Actually, side note... little book review for people here. Check out the book, The Killer Across the Table. That's another one that kind of tells you more about how they develop those profiles if it's something that you're interested in.
Interesting.
Yep. On Thursday, March 9th, At 10 a.m., Mike Patty, Liberty German's grandfather, speaks to media for the first time since the deaths of Libby and Abby.
I raised Liberty since she was 3 years old. We've had her in our home. My wife and I's relationship with her has been deeply sown with love, as we're allowed to play two roles in her life, both grandparents and parents. She's the love of our life. We're a very tight-knit family with love pouring throughout our lives. There's not a day that goes by this was not shared between us. Our minds at this stage are stirred in the deepest sorrow one can imagine. It is my sincere hope that no one experiences what my family is going through at this time. Liberty was taken away from us, and this will be a void that will forever leave a hole in our souls. Yet we find strength in our faith in God and our Lord Jesus Christ. The outpouring support from our family, friends, neighbors, local community across the state, the nation, and even across other continents is unlike anything we've ever observed. With all the kind words shared with my family, we have yet to find the one statement that will take this horrible pain away. As I remember Liberty, she was so active and full of life, involved in every sport she could play: soccer, softball, volleyball, and swimming. She was extremely smart, taking all high-ability classes and maintaining an A average. She had a love for music and played the saxophone in the band and would often pick at a guitar in her room. What we would give to hear some of those off-key notes today.
Sergeant P. Ryan from Indiana State Police says the case is emotional for everybody. So, they feel the family's pain in this as well.
And at this point, he reveals that the reward has surpassed $224,000, and they've received more than 1,100 tips.
On Monday the 13th, the Trail Task Force that we discussed, they discuss security gaps along the trail system and make recommendations for changes. So I'm assuming this is, for the bridge itself. I think we saw the bridge was 75 feet high.
That bridge scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I don't think I'd go across.
I'm looking at the picture and I'm like, those are some brave girls.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm like, I would be wanting to get on all fours maybe to walk across this thing, especially on a windy day.
Absolutely.
I'm like, wow, let's set some rails up there, maybe clean it up, make it a nicer little place for people to go.
A walking path.
Yeah.
And so on Friday, March 24th, 2017, authorities announced that the investigation into the teens will take a normal approach, I guess.
What does that mean?
It's a good question. I'm guessing maybe they're going to proceed with interviews and, of course, weeding out the tips and things like that.
But, that's pretty much what they've been doing all along.
Maybe interviewing some of the people who have sent in tips.
Maybe it means that they have some information to hone in on. And now that they've got a little something, that normalization process is about to begin.
Maybe.
That could be what that means now. About a month later, victims' families announced plans to build a sports complex with several softball fields in honor of the girls. A fundraising event was held on July 15th for that.
Oh, that's cool. I think one of the girls was really into softball, so
yeah,
doing this in her honor. And I think they also did a tournament in the middle of the summer, a softball tournament, where proceeds from that tournament went towards that new sports complex.
Yeah, it was actually during that same event.
Yep.
So that's a pretty cool thing.
All right. So here's where the investigation really starts heating up.
Yeah, this is kind of crazy. Later on in the summer, Indiana State Police release a sketch of the murder suspects. So what do we have, Jason?
So now we have the down the hill audio.
Yes.
We have a picture of the suspect.
We do.
And we have a police sketch of what they think the suspect looks like based on the, expert opinion of the picture that you couldn't really tell.
Right, but I bet you somewhere in the FBI labs and all that, they have some kind of way to clean up the picture.
Oh, they can see your nose hair from a mile away.
Even on that grainy photo. Later on in the summer, kind of a little twist hits. Now, this is on September 27th.
Yep.
A man named Daniel Nations was arrested in Colorado.
Right, and I think Nations is a registered sex offender that's actually from Indiana, but when he was arrested in Woodland Park, Colorado, he actually got caught because he was threatening strangers with a hatchet on a monument trail.
I've never done that.
No, never.
No.
A lot of hiking, never even seen it.
He has expired Indiana plates on the car that he was driving as the police had stopped him. At this time, the police also noticed an outstanding warrant that was in his name. So this guy, he's pretty reckless. He just seems like he's out there, right?
Right, and of course the public starts speculating at this time because it was reported that a bicyclist had been fatally shot on that same trail around the same time that Nations was terrifying the walker.
Okay, so what you're saying is that there was some stuff happening in this otherwise quiet community where somebody was shot on a trail that he was somewhere around, and he's also been threatening people with a hatchet.
Right, so, probably a pretty quiet area that suddenly has all this commotion, and he seems to be linked to it.
Definitely somebody to question.
Right, and I think the county sheriff of El Paso actually told reporters that there's many similarities between this and the Delphi case, but he was not at liberty to disclose them because Indiana investigators actually didn't want them releasing too much information.
Well, that's interesting because we don't know how these girls had died.
Right.
We know this guy's got a hatchet. He hasn't killed anybody with a hatchet. He was threatening people with a hatchet, but he shot at somebody.
Right, and the Indiana police don't want their investigation compromised at all by, another jurisdiction releasing information that might be detriment to this case, really with a guy who may not even be involved.
Right. Definitely somebody to look into, though.
Right. And actually, Nathan's, on January 5th, 2018, he was sentenced to 3 years of probation for threatening members of the public in Colorado with that hatchet incident.
Yeah, he was not released since he had an active warrant out for his arrest, though, in another county back in Indiana. But on January 24th, Nations was finally transferred to Indiana officials. So I think it was like I'm a little confused with this here. He was placed on probation by one municipality, but at the time he's brought back to...
Right, he still had a warrant in Indiana, so...
Okay.
So his warrant there was on an unrelated charge, which was failing to register as a sex offender. So that's a pretty serious issue.
Well, that gives us a little bit more information, too.
Right, and later the police said that he was not considered an active suspect, but you can understand why he was. I mean, he was a registered sex offender. They never released that these girls were sexually assaulted, but a lot of people think that they probably were.
Yeah, and you know what? It takes a special person to threaten people with a hatchet.
Absolutely.
Definitely the kind of person that will do reckless things. A sex offender is somebody that's definitely a reckless person, so definitely a good person for investigators to look at.
Right.
But we have to talk about DNA. I mean, were they able to rule him out with DNA? Did they say that?
They've never said that they have DNA.
Okay, they've never said that they've had DNA. But if they're able to say, yeah, this guy's... Maybe they're able to say... Maybe they're able to prove he was in another area at the time, perhaps. Right. I don't know.
And Daniel Nation's wife actually speaks out and says that even though her husband resembles the police sketch...
And he does.
He absolutely does. He's not the man in the photo.
Okay, so... Daniel Nations?
Probably not.
Okay, so we can move on from him, probably.
I believe so.
Okay. So where does this story take us?
On January 8th of 2018, the Indiana State Police and the Carroll County Sheriffs announced the base of operations for the investigation is moving back to its original location in City Hall because there's larger space there. The building they were in just wasn't big enough for this investigation. So
things are still growing.
It seems like this is top A1 priority for this police department.
But nothing seems to be coming of it.
Nothing yet.
Nothing really. Now, on Monday, January 15th, the Bledsoe County Sheriff's Department in Tennessee posts a statement on their Facebook page saying the search for the Delphi suspect has extended into southern Tennessee counties. Wow.
So this guy may be a drifter or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me, but I wonder what makes them say that.
Right, he's either on the run or he's a drifter or something, but the Tennessee authorities do clarify and say that there hasn't been any sightings of him, just the investigation has shifted there. But at this time, the search is actually nationwide anyway. Do
you think those that were leading the search might have had the authorities in Tennessee, kind of shush it?
Probably.
Potentially, you think so? Yeah.
Right, and in April of 2019, so this is a recent development, it was kind of quiet for about a year or so.
I was going to say, now this is about a year and 2 months later?
Yep. The state police released new information at this time.
Information is being released today is the result of literally thousands and thousands of hours of extraordinary investigative efforts by Delphi, Carroll County, the FBI, the Indiana State Police, and countless other agencies. This community surrounded us some 26 months ago. And you did everything you could to support us, but most importantly, you surrounded the family of these two little girls. Gosh, I'll never forget it. After you hear what we're going to release today, I'm going to ask for your continued support, your continued understanding, your empathy and compassion as we move forward to find out who did this, and we will. We're seeking the public's help to identify the driver of a vehicle that was parked at the old CPS DCS welfare building in the city of Delphi that was abandoned on the east side of County Road 300 North next to the Hoosier Heartland Highway between the hours of noon to 5 on February 14th, 2017. If you were parked there or know who was parked there, please contact the officers at the command post at the Delphi City Building. We are releasing additional portions of the audio recording from that day. Please keep in mind the person talking is one person and is the person on the bridge with the girls. This is not two different people speaking. Please listen to it very, very carefully. We are also releasing video recovered from Libby's phone. This video has never before been previously released. The video shows a suspect walking on the bridge. When you see the video, watch the person's mannerisms as they walk. Watch the mannerisms as he walks. Do you recognize the mannerisms as being someone that you might know? Remember, he is walking on the former railroad bridge. Because of the deteriorated condition of the bridge, the suspect is not walking naturally due to the spacing between the ties. During the course of this investigation, we have concluded the first sketch released will become secondary as of today. The result of the new information and intelligence over time leads us to believe the sketch, which you will see shortly, is the person responsible for the murders of these two little girls. We also believe this person is from Delphi, currently or has previously lived here, visits Delphi on a regular basis, or works here. We believe this person is currently between the age range of 18 and 40, but might appear younger than his true age. Directly to the killer, who may be in this room. We believe you are hiding in plain sight. For more than 2 years, you never thought we would shift gears to a different investigative strategy, but we have. We likely have interviewed you or someone close to you. We know that this is about power to you, and you want to know what we know. And one day, you will. A question to you. What will those closest to you think of when they find out that you brutally murdered two little girls? Two children. Only a coward would do such a thing. We are confident that you have told someone what you have done. Or at the very least, they know because of how different you are since the murders. We try so hard to understand how a person could do something like this to two children. I recently watched a movie called The Shack. And there's also a book that talks so well about evil, about death, and about eternity. To the murderer, I believe you have just a little bit of a conscience left. And I can assure you that how you left them in that woods is not, it's not what they're experiencing today. To the family, I hope that you all will give them some time, because we're going to be asking that there's no media inquiry or no media response for at least the next 2 weeks, and I hope you understand why. The family found out about this information this morning. I just want the family to know that when I take my last breath on this earth, I'll be thinking of them. There's going to be a tremendous amount of questions. I know that. I know that. Never in my career have I stood in front of something like this. Please be patient with us, please. We're just beginning. We are just now beginning. And I can tell you on behalf of the sheriff and the police chief, so many other partners that have stood with us over this period of time, that we will not stop.
I just unveiled the person that we believe responsible for the murder of these 2 little girls. So I invite media to take a look at that now. It's not up. We're also going to show you a video not previously released that the superintendent spoke to, and also the audio that's additional to what's been previously released. There's only a slight change in it. So give Sergeant Riley just a second as he gets that up and ready.
He was speaking to somebody.
Sent chills down my spine, dude.
It did.
Yeah, whoa. That was nuts.
So that's really the most recent developments about the case, but, let's speculate about some of the potential suspects.
Sure. This is kind of I guess you could say a side note to this, right? Somebody to maybe think about. Actually, you had found this information before I had.
Right, this was what, about 10 days ago?
Yes.
Yeah, so Paul Eder lived near Delphi, and he actually committed a rape in June of 2019. Police actually say that he resembled the man in the video. He was well educated. He had 7 children, and one characteristic that matches that rape was it was a crime of opportunity, which of course is interesting to me that they are now saying that a rapist is a suspect. So that almost says that they probably were sexually assaulted.
And because he's dead, did they subpoena his DNA?
I'm not sure, because he died in a police standoff about 10 days ago, so, that's probably still stalled right now, but I'm sure that's something they intend on looking into.
And we don't know if they have DNA in the actual Delphi murder case.
Right. The most interesting thing to me about this is that they're saying that because he was a rapist and a crime of opportunity, he's a suspect, because they've never really said anything about sexual assault in the case.
They haven't, but things have been alluded to that the entire time. Unfortunately, in the way our minds work, we almost want to rule it out ourselves. But chances are, when you speculate, that there was probably something that had happened.
Right,
unfortunately. But if there is, I'm really hoping there's some DNA there. And
right.
I'm thinking that there probably is some kind of DNA, but maybe it's somebody that's never been arrested and they don't have it in the system.
Right. It's very common.
So, there's also somebody else that you had brought to my attention.
Yeah, the other person was Thomas Bruce. He actually worked as a pastor, but he was charged with fatally shooting a woman and sexually assaulting 2 others after he had ordered them at gunpoint into the back room of a religious supply shop. So this is kind of interesting because, based on that crime, it kind of his MO is, leading them away, which is kind of what we hear in the video, down the hill.
Yeah.
You can almost picture him.
I mean, that's kind of weak. I'm not seeing...
I could almost see him, because it says he ordered them to the back room. He may have... I could see him into the back room, like something like that. I'm not sure.
But I'm not really seeing necessarily why that would have anything to do with, what the similarities are, other than the fact that a rapist is probably an aggressive person who's going to bark orders and have you get into a situation, walk yourself into a situation that you don't need to be in.
Right. And he actually committed these crimes in broad daylight in 2018, which is what put him on the spotlight of the press. They basically said he's a similar stature to the suspect in the description, and he's also wearing a flat cap and a navy blue jacket, which, as you see in the picture, or in the video from her phone, that's what the suspect was wearing.
No, Jason, come on, man. Think for a second here on this one, right? You're the guy that does this, and you're seeing times pass, and over this time, you're seeing picture of yourself with your hat and your blue jacket and all that all over TV. I mean, anybody with 2 brain cells is going to say, I'm getting rid of the hat, I'm getting rid of the jacket, I'm going to shed a couple pounds, I'm going to change my haircut.
But the thing is they may have tried to blend in plain sight, and we've seen with plenty of, if he did both these crimes, he's a serial sexual assault, it's a serial rapist. So, these people like to almost flaunt their, I got away with this, I'm still wearing the same clothes, ha ha ha.
Could you imagine?
It's not surprising to me.
Sick stuff. So what's up with this guy? On December 4th, Bruce was charged with no less than 17 felony counts related to the St. Louis case and could receive the death penalty.
Police in Indiana did look into his possible connection, but I'm not they haven't really released what they found.
I'll tell you what, if they had DNA, then they would be able to either rule him in or rule him out, most likely.
Yeah. I'm not sure. So this is basically the story up to this point.
This is what's known. Do you want to... there's some other stuff that I believe came out after that. Her cell phone, who had the cell phone? It was Abigail that had the cell phone, correct? Libby, I'm sorry. Libby that had the cell phone. That her phone was pinging off of towers all over the area. Now, what does this mean? It means a couple of things. The people that are really dwelling on this, they're looking at it as, oh, well, they were picked up and brought into a vehicle and brought all over the place and then brought back. I think for a killer to do that, that's a whole lot of work, especially during daylight. I believe more like something to the effect of as they walk along the trail and stuff, maybe they leave one cell phone tower zone and they enter another one.
Right.
I mean, I'm not an expert on that either, but that makes more sense than somebody taking them all over the place.
Right, absolutely. I mean, from what it sounds to me is whenever she took this video, she probably put her phone in her pocket. The guy led them down the hill, and it probably wasn't too long after that they were deceased. That's
my thought. He did what he didn't have to do, but he did the crime, did this terrible act.
Right, and probably his only intention of going down the hill to begin with was just so a passerby wouldn't have seen.
Yeah, it's unfortunately you see so many cases like this, so many tragic, unnecessary murders and rapes. It's unfortunate, and I really hope for all of them. But this is one that I've been following for a long time.
I think we're going to follow this one right to the end.
Yeah, we definitely are, and I'm really hoping that there is an end, and I hope it's very, very soon.
All right, and I think that the community and law enforcement deserve huge praise for the way they've handled it and continue to handle it. I think when this case is solved, it's going to be largely because of them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, if anybody listening to this podcast has any information, maybe there's something that's been eating you for a while, or maybe you heard some kind of rumor that just, sounds like it could be something. If you got something to say, once again, we want to remind you to call 1-844-459-5786 and give them your tip.
Absolutely. And we also want to thank you for tuning in again this week. We look forward to many more episodes.
Absolutely. And here's our social media plug, and you guys have a nice week.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Hey guys, we're not hard to find. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at the Rigor Mortis Podcast.
Yep, and also our email, therigormortispodcast@gmail.com.
I love the emails, guys. While I'm on my lunch break at work, this is something I look forward to reading. So please keep me entertained and keep our inbox full.
Yes, absolutely. Let us know if you love the show. Let us know what we can improve on. And, if you have any other suggestions for us, we'd love to hear those as well.
Yeah, we definitely love listener suggestions. Keep them coming in. We've gotten great feedback so far.
Absolutely. And we have our most important, probably, social media would be the Rigor Mortis Podcast Patreon page.
Yes, please take a look at our Patreon page. You know, we're an independent podcast. We don't have a whole lot of money to do this. We're kind of doing it as a passion and a hobby that we want to pursue.
Absolutely. And every minute we're out here working on this is one more minute that our wives are getting upset with us. So.
Yeah, so please help us justify that to our wives, as well as help us to grow the show. This show is brought to you by people like you.
Absolutely, and all your donations just help us to make the show better and do more editing and be able to put more back into you.
And like we were saying, if we can justify this to our wives, then we can certainly justify putting out a couple more episodes a week.
Absolutely, and thank you guys always for listening.
Yes, goodbye.